Republicans have a clear racist problem, and it's not going anywhere because they don't care about it. Marla Ferdinands mm, committed more blatant racism and is refusing to apologize for it and pretending that everybody else is making a big deal out of nothing. The conspiracy theorist responded to a Democrat. Take a look at this. They posted, "Wow, I'll be getting with these champs. Make my day. Thanks, Colorado AFT. Let's get to work." And Marla, the racist, responded, "Did you say chimps? Sorry, it must be my dyslexia. But again, AFT is an arm of the NEA. They are the deep state. Meg likes power and money and doesn't support the people." The massive amount of stupidity that it takes to be a racist shows that it's mostly the Republicans. And the Republican Party is not going after them because that's the base of the party. And the media ignoring that and how horrible these people are should not be ignored. To defend herself, she responded with, "The bait was strong." Yes, her racism caused people to get upset. And she was being smart. She goes on with this. "What's disgusting? The people on Twitter are creating hatred and division over a word when they don't know the person. They latch on to words than truth." Yep, Marx is loving this. They latch on to words. So what is it? Did she put chimps to bait people to get people upset? So she does a blatantly racist stuff to get attention, and then she complains about people not getting to know her before they judge her. It gets even worse because her explanations are out of both sides of her face. When asked what she meant by that tweet, she responded with, "I was trying to get Meg and the NEA." Keep in mind that was not who we're talking about here. "And I meant to put chumps, but I said, you know what, let's go with this and see what happens since I'm Hispanic. So I got the media coverage." So she's not able to be racist because she's Hispanic. She hasn't deleted the tweet or updated it. And she doubles down, refusing to apologize with it. And the Republicans don't care. When asked if she understood the history of it, "I'm freaking Hispanic," she exclaimed. "There is no historical with it. We are using different words nowadays and people are twisting things." She said she did it for the media coverage. Now she's saying people are twisting it. Yes, the amount of stupidity that Republicans mouth off and the media actually pretends these people are worth listening to should be appalling. Another Texas woman was put in a life-threatening position because of the Republicans. Kristen Chunak was frail and vomiting and in pain, according to the Houston Chronicle, then made to wait 5 days to get an abortion because the doctors are scared to perform abortions because the law doesn't make sense. In her 15-week of pregnancy, a large fluid-filled sac surrounded the fetus, most prominently around the head and neck. Massive cysts, some filled with blood, covered her enlarged ovaries in a spokeswheel pattern, according to her medical records. Additional fluid had filled parts of her abdomen. The law maintains that a physician may not knowingly perform or induce an abortion on a pregnant woman if the physician detects a fetal heartbeat. The only exceptions are in case which the mother's life is in danger or there is a medical emergency. But since the law isn't properly written, no one knows what they're going to prosecute on. And the fact is, Texas will prosecute for any reason whatsoever they get. Because this law is not intended to actually save lives. This law is intended to scare anyone thinking of performing an abortion to save someone's life, because they might be accused that their life wasn't in full danger yet. And so doctors are not doing anything until the patients get critical. People will die because of this, and the Republicans will just not care. Dr. Lauren Swords, the medical director of Sugar Land Hospital Birthing Center, told the newspaper she believes the new laws had something to do with this unfortunate delay of care. There's so much about these laws that people just do not really understand outside of healthcare, Swords said. This is a perfect example of how these laws that are in place can directly impact maternal health and care, and it's very frustrating to be a gynecologist in Texas. Kristen Schoenerak said, "You have to lay there and wait and have your life in the hands of an ethics committee or a doctor that wants to help but can't, not knowing what was going to happen or how long I was going to have to be in the hospital or if you're going to have to travel somewhere. That's the hardest part." The fact is, Republicans put this in place to stop people from having sex. Because if women are scared to get pregnant because they might die, Republicans have stopped the women's lib, because that's what it's all about. The control of who women get to have sex with. It doesn't matter if a few of them die or they have to give birth to their rapist children. They don't care. They never thought this through, because a lot of them probably assumed the Supreme Court realized that this was only about getting the bigots in their base riled up. Now, we're going to enjoy this next video, but before we start, we should always start these off with the Lincoln Projects, our failed grifters that are Republicans that decided that they can make more money ripping off the Democrats than they can ripping off Republicans. But we can enjoy the fruits of their labor even though they pocket the majority of money they're given and their work accomplishes nothing. Take a look at this video.
Dear MAGA, we have some bad news. No, not that he lost. Not that your little coup attempt failed and its planners and the attackers are going to jail. No, the really bad news is why Trump told you he lost. Why he set it up way before the 2020 election. It wasn't voter fraud, but it was fraud. Trump told you the election was stolen to rip you off, to sucker you, to take your hard-earned money and shovel it into his pockets. He spent it on himself, not to take back the White House. It was the biggest scam in political history. Every dollar you sent him paid to keep his shaky business empire and lavish lifestyle going. It was a sucker's game all along. And you know who the sucker is? It's you.
This has pissed Trump off extremely. Why is Twitler mad? Because they said he was poor. There was a roast that was done about Twitler, and you could make fun of his wife, his kids, his hair, anything whatsoever about him except being poor. He doesn't like anyone thinking that he's not really a billionaire. But the fact is, he really isn't. So, the money his father gave him, all that money, if he just let somebody else deal with it, you know what? He would have $10 billion before he ran for the presidency. But since he's stupid and incompetent, he tried to do it himself. And the reality is, it looks like he's going to go bankrupt again. But this has ticked him off so much, he responded with, "You're going to like this. The perverts and lowlifes of the Lincoln Project are back on. Where else? Fox News. I thought they ran away to the asylum after their last catastrophic campaign, with charges made against them that were big-time sleaze, and me getting many millions more votes in 2020 than I got in 2016. The Paul Ryan run Fox only has high standards for Trump ads, but not for anyone else. The pervert should not be allowed to false advertise, and Fox News should not allow it to happen. See you all in court." The idiot notion that Trump would ever file a lawsuit here when he would actually have to divulge where the $250 million he milked out of the Republican base for, election lawsuits to get him installed as president. He pocketed that. Even the January 6th committee pointed that out. And there is no way any of those lawyers that he had could have even put a dent in $250 million for their pathetic failed attempt to get it into courts. So he's not going to sue. He's going to throw a tantrum, lie a whole bunch, and then go away as impotent as if, we stole the election when he was president and ran the Justice Department with a whole bunch of pathetic lackeys. If he's not man enough to stop us from stealing the election when he's the president of the United States, there's really nothing you have to fear from this worthless man. He is right about one thing. The Lincoln Projects are worthless people. The fact is, $80 million was raised by these people. $26 million went into their own pockets, and a lot more went into consulting. Figures add up to 80% of what they raised went into overhead. Not only that, they accomplished no votes for the Democrats. Where their videos did the best, they had the least response. Yeah. There is a difference between the Democratic and the Republican base. The Republicans run on hatred, and that's what the Lincoln Project feeds. It's fun, it's entertaining, but the truth is, the Democratic base isn't responding and won't respond to the stupidity fed to Republicans. That's just it. They are failures because Democrats are not as worthless as Republicans. So we got some more good news. More Republicans have been getting arrested for their attempted overthrow of the United States, and it is quite amusing. Tina Peters is the last one getting arrested right now, and she pleaded not guilty to charges of election tampering and official misconduct. The good news is that, having been recently destroyed in the Republican primary for Secretary of State, she's going to have plenty of time to fight these charges. The bad news is Belinda Kingsley pleaded guilty to misdemeanors of trespassing, first-degree official misconduct, and violation of duty. She was the Mesa County deputy under Peters. and she has agreed to testify and provided 7 hours of testimony that will greatly help the case against Peters. This led to the arrest of Peters in a public space as she tries to kick a police officer and has a complete Karen meltdown. You're going to want to see this.
Grand Junction Police issued an arrest warrant for Tina Peters today, Mesa County's Republican elections clerk. The warrant is for obstructing a peace officer, which is a misdemeanor. Police detained Peters yesterday after she was accused of recording a judge in court and lying about it. That could be a felony. When police came for the iPad, Peters struggled with officers, appearing to try and kick one of them at one point. Police say Peters' kick made contact with the officer's taser. Peters is facing multiple local and federal investigations for compromising election software and then sharing that information with fellow conspiracy theorists as they search for evidence that the election was rigged. Tonight, one of Peters' most prominent Republican allies, Sharona Bishop, Representative Lauren Boebert's former campaign manager, called on law enforcement officers to refuse orders to participate in further investigations.
We can ignore the fact that she isn't being charged with resisting arrest or assault on an officer. We know the police only do this for poor people and those of color. But we can see where the Karen's sense of entitlement comes from because the cop didn't faceplant this person into the ground. She was rich, she was white, and let's face it, she was a Republican. If she didn't have this former power, you know perfectly well police officers would not have tolerated what you've seen in that video. Peters faces 10 counts of violating election, 3 counts of attempting to influence a public servant, criminal impersonation, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, 1 count of identity theft, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, and failing to comply with the Secretary of State. Yes, remember, the Justice Department only brings charges when they think they can get a conviction. And the richer you are, the more evidence they need. The judge was very unhappy with the plea deal signed, Kingsley, and she wasn't going to jail because the plea deal required it. And that was the only reason the judge assured her that she was going to walk out of this courtroom. Further stating, every time you acknowledge what you did, you preface it with, I was told to do this, I was told to do that. And if you did not know exactly what you were doing, as if you did not know the harm you were engaging in. Yeah. So they gave a sweetheart plea deal to a Republican to testify against another one, even though she's not taking any responsibility for the crimes that she actually committed to. So, it is alleged that Peters directed Kingsley to bring Conan Hayes, part of Trump's legal team, to copy information off the Dominion voting machines before they were scheduled for a secure upgrade. Hayes was given fake documents that still didn't give him the right to access the information. Peters turned off the cameras because she knew what she was doing was illegal. Don't worry, Peters has a defense. It is the liberal cabal of woke commie Muslim Jews that I run. I know it's a lot of work, but overthrowing democracy by taking the presidency away from Twitler and throwing all these people in jail, it's just fun. Even though I have to go through all this work for the cover-up. Mike Lindell has announced that he has spent hundreds of thousands on Peters' legal defense, which means that she has violated ethics by accepting illegal gifts. Not to give it to Lindell. You get him in a private meeting with the family and tell them that he was going to change the world and he will go whack job and do whatever you put him up to. I mean, years of him doing this, all for that one meeting. I mean, tell someone that God wants them to do this? Most people don't respond like this, but his stupidity of running his company into the ground and giving up hundreds of millions of dollars, man, choosing him to do this stupidity was just wonderful. And this will be the third arrest, as Sandra Brown was also arrested on this conspiracy. So I am looking forward to multiple orange jumpsuits in these people's future. In Republicans' ongoing war of stopping people from having sex, we know that they won't stop an abortion. And a Texas judge just showed how far these delusional, worthless people are willing to push it. The Texas judge ruled that PrEP cannot be provided by insurance companies. He decided that the drug can't be paid for because it might be used for the gays. Yeah. This drug is no longer allowed to be covered under insurance because a whole bunch of religious people said allowing coverage of PrEP encourages the gays, and their religion says they shouldn't encourage the gay people. This ruling opens the door to stopping insurance from paying for any contraceptions because it might encourage the sex. I shouldn't have to pay for the health care plans for my employees that cover contraceptions because my religion says no sex before marriage. O'Connor's ruling isn't a surprise because he has been a Republican hitman for policy for decades now. In 2021, he ruled that the conservative group were allowed to discriminate based on religious grounds despite the Supreme Court extending employment protections a year earlier, and he is the same that ruled that the Affordable Care Act was unconstitutional, which was again overturned because he is a whack job that comes up with any lie. O'Connor is just another judge that should be impeached, and the fact that we're not talking about these people in those terms should scare you, because they think that these people should stay on the court for many decades to come, even though their rulings and their justifications for it are so mind-bendingly dumb. Why should we keep people on that are overruled because they make up justifications out of thin air, lie as a legal argument? How exactly have we not impeached these people yet? The ruling goes much further than outlawing contraceptions. It could also jeopardize access to cancer screenings, medical screenings for pregnant women, and some counseling services, because he decided that the law passed as is not qualified to judge what preventative services the insurance companies are allowed to provide. He makes some idiotic decisions that those deciding who and what the insurance companies have to cover is not constitutional, because it needs a presidential appointed and Senate confirmed person, because he just wants it that way. That's it. Another Trump lackey has gone down. Bannon was charged with money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. Twitler pardoned Bannon, but a pardon is an admission of guilt. Just ask the Supreme Court. So, what Bannon is being brought up on right now is something he already admitted guilt to by accepting the pardon. Stephen Bannon acted as the architect of a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud the thousands of donors across the country, including hundreds of Manhattan residents, said District Attorney Braggs. Letitia James, who also partnered with this prosecution, said Mr. Bannon has taken advantage of his donors' political views to secure millions of dollars, which he then misappropriated. He is accused of personally pocketing $1 million from Republicans that thought he was going to build a wall. Remember, the Justice Department is to never bring a case if it doesn't think it can win. So rich people get off, but if a case is brought against someone like Bannon, it is likely he is going to get convicted. Now, Bannon should turn on Trump because Letitia James is after the big fish. And when Bannon's actually looking down at jail time, knowing that Twitler is never going to become president again and can't get him out of state charges even if he was, Bannon is not a big, strong man. He just says he is. So, how long is he going to sit in prison before he talks? Marjorie Taylor Greene is a loser, anti-Semite, and really, really dumb. She actually believed that Twitler was a good businessman, and she spent thousands of dollars of her own money trying to back him up. Twitler's Truth Social is becoming a complete and utter failure because Republicans don't actually want to talk to other Republicans. They want to upset Democrats because that is the only thing they can do. That's why they like Facebook, where they pretend that they're normal, but Mark Zuckerberg allows the racist bigots to spread and plan attacks on the United States. So Marjorie Taylor Greene entered into Trump's business venture with $15,000 to $50,000 worth of DWAC stock on October 26, 2021. Due to the Congress having to report the bare minimum of what stocks they are trading, we don't know exactly how many shares she has, but she bought them at $94 a share and owns anywhere from 159 to 530 shares. And they're not worth anywhere near what she paid for them anymore. It looks very close that Twitler isn't paying the fees to keep Truth Social on the internet. So it only looks like a matter of weeks or even months before it goes under and she loses it all. But don't worry, she's involved with plenty other schemes to get money out of the federal government and all the people that she talks to. Marjorie Taylor Greene has gone on to a full white supremacist conference. So take a look at this video.
This one organized by an avowed white supremacist called the America First Political Action Conference. You could call it a fringe gathering, except for the fact that 2 sitting members of Congress were a part of it. Republicans Paul Gosar of Arizona and Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. Now listen to what Nick Fuentes, the anti-Semitic white nationalist leader of the conference, said just before introducing his special guest, Congresswoman Greene.
And you want to know the secret? To borrow a phrase from a friend of mine, our secret sauce here, it's these young white men. That's what we call the secret ingredient. America and the world has forgotten about them, but not us. You know, they say about America, they say, diversity is our strength, you know. And I look at China and I look at Russia. Can we give a round of applause for Russia? Yes. Absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, that's the podium that Marjorie Taylor Greene then appeared at. And today, she started feeling the heat. She tried to pretend she had no idea who the white supremacist guy was or what he stood for. But you can see from her speech, right after his, that she knew exactly where she was.
You know what it's like to be canceled. And that's why I'm here to talk to you tonight. I don't believe anyone should be canceled. I don't believe in separating people in identities. I don't believe in separating people in classes. But that's what the Democrats believe in, because that's what Marxism is. That's what communism is.
And members of the conservative movement are now, well, they have been for a while, but at this place explicitly normalizing white supremacy. They're in a venue with the leader expressing explicit solidarity with Vladimir Putin as he launches an offense that has shocked the world's conscience. At the same time, and this is a sort of weird aspect of the ideological moment, many Republicans, conservatives are seeing, well, this is all Joe Biden's fault. It wouldn't have happened on Donald Trump's watch. And here's the thing. They're probably right. That's next.
Why don't we get a full announcement of these people with distancing themselves from the Republicans that participate in these events? Because this is the base of the Republican Party. Those racist, bigot, Nazis, KKK members, Proud Boys, and Western chauvinists, no matter how they reframe the Nazis, that is the base of the Republican Party. Get it? White men forgotten? It should be noted that this is so stupid, it should be disqualifying. How can anyone believe this? There was a study that showed that when women get up to 30-40% of people in a room, men like this freak out and think they're surrounded by women, and they're over 50% because they are weak. Why doesn't the media hold her accountable? This is just an example of how stupid the Republicans are and how racist they are. I don't know what other evidence you need. Maybe her screaming about a Jewish space laser? It wasn't just a single Republican that no one likes. How about Idaho's Lieutenant Governor, McGretchen? Check out this video.
But I want to say it very clearly and very directly. I believe this election was stolen from Donald J. Trump.
I will never, ever apologize for objecting to an unconstitutional election in November of 2020.
President Trump was right. The Clintons spied on him.
They were trying to censor us, silence us, cancel us, muzzle us. In fact, they had just told me that because I stood up and objected on January 6th, that I ought to be run out of the United States Senate. I've got news for you. I wasn't backing down then. I haven't changed my mind now.
Such a tough guy, that Josh Hawley. Those are the Republican stars of this weekend event known as CPAC, firmly planted in an entirely alternate universe of the big lie cult. And while the MAGA rally atmosphere has become the mainstream for the Republican Party, it's all essentially interchangeable. The real vanguard of the conservative movement was at a competing adjacent event. This one organized by an avowed white supremacist called the America First Political Action Conference. You could call it a fringe gathering, except for the fact that two sitting members of Congress were a part of it. Republicans Paul Gosar of Arizona and Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. Now listen to what Nick Fuentes, the anti-Semitic white nationalist leader of the conference, said just before introducing his special guest, Congresswoman Greene.
And you want to know the secret? To borrow a phrase from a friend of mine, our secret sauce here, it's these young white men.
The Republicans think these people are horrible. But since it's the base of their party, only a few of them speak out. This is the same people taking away abortion rights. And the fact that in a year's time, if Gretchen has power, they are more than willing to ignore this and allow her to stay in the party. And if we need more proof this conference has always been for bigots, how about a little video from last year?
Arizona Republicans are taking some heat tonight, but not for something said or done. It's because they're staying silent.
None of them has spoken out about Congressman Paul Gosar attending a white nationalist event 2 weeks ago. Our political editor, Dennis Welch, tried to press them for answers.
And in the past, an elected official attending an event like this would have been immediately and widely condemned, but not this time, as Republicans are choosing to stay silent, including Republican Governor Doug Ducey, who spoke very bluntly about his thoughts on race just last year.
One of the questions that was asked of me at the meeting is if I thought racism was a sin. And I said, of course it is a sin.
That was Arizona Governor Doug Ducey in June recounting a discussion he had with local faith leaders.
American patriots now carry the torch.
But in the 2 weeks since Republican Congressman Paul Gosar spoke at a white nationalist event headlined by Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes, who said this:
"White people are done being bullied."
Ducey has declined repeated requests to comment.
When you have the responsibility of an elected office, you have also the responsibility to speak for those who do not have a voice.
Reverend Reginald Walton said the governor's continued silence normalizes white nationalism. But Ducey is not the only high-ranking Republican who's kept quiet on Gosar. We've reached out to Attorney General Mark Brnovich, State Treasurer Kimberly Yee, and Republican congressional representatives Andy Biggs, Debbie Lesko, and David Schweikert, and they have not responded.
It's sad that no one in the GOP would be bold and brave enough to say, Congressman Gosar, you are wrong for going to this meeting. This is not who we are. This is not acceptable.
And I have reached out to some political consultants and asked them why Republicans are choosing to stay silent. Now, they offered very different opinions, but one consistent was that they believe that Republicans don't see that any criticism will change Gosar's behavior. In Phoenix, Dennis Welch, Arizona's Family.
Now watch how desperately this CNN tries to avoid telling everybody that it's the Republican Party, and just the Republican Party, that is taking away abortion rights.
In our health lead, we are now going to take a look beyond the politics of the coast-to-coast fight over abortion rights.
Beyond the politics.
At the consequences of the new laws passed in the wake of the Supreme Court decision
by the Republicans,
striking down Roe v. Wade. As you know, many states are enacting restrictions or outright bans, while other states are trying to make abortion more easily accessible to anyone who can get across their borders. CNN senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohen brings us now the story of a woman who was caught in the middle of this ugly
fight. In a
fight,
Republican state.
And it could have killed her.
Kaylee Despain got married in Marble Falls, Texas, out of college.
What were your plans for having a family?
Oh man, we wanted kids like right away.
Late last year, Kaylee, a third-grade teacher, and her husband, Kate, an electrician, were thrilled to learn she was pregnant. But about 4 months later, at a doctor's appointment,
he said, this is what a normal heart looks like, but this is what your baby's heart looks like. And he was missing heart chambers.
Her medical records show more. The fetus had an extra set of chromosomes, a severe brain defect, a severe heart defect, and his lungs were too small. Dr. Leah Tatum is a spokesperson for the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists.
If the fetus develops to term, that fetus will deliver and ultimately that baby will suffocate and pass away.
Kaylee's doctor was clear.
When he's born, he's going to suffocate to death. He may live for a few minutes, he may live for an hour, but he is going to die.
Her doctors said they could not perform an abortion, noting in her records termination is not legal in the state of Texas.
Because of Republicans.
I remember her saying, you know, the course of action that I would have taken with a patient a year ago would be to advise them to terminate. She said that is the safest course of action for you, and it's the most humane course of action for him. And I just remember being so angry and shocked in that moment.
The safest action.
I'm being told that my child's not going to survive and that I have to carry him to term no matter what.
All this
And
pain is
carrying him
because
to
of the
term
Republicans.
could have put Kaylee's life in danger. She was at high risk for several potentially deadly pregnancy complications, blood clots, preeclampsia, and cancer because of an abnormal placenta. Texas law allows for abortion if the mother has a life-threatening physical condition that places her at risk of death or substantial impairment. But Texas lawmakers haven't spelled out exactly what that means.
They're extremely vague. They don't spell out exactly the situations when an abortion can be provided.
People are scared
I would
to
say
have
it's the
them.
opposite. They're
People are
extremely
scared to
restrictive
perform
and
them.
broad. They threaten criminal penalties
Because
against
this is what
physicians.
Republicans
they
want.
threaten to take someone's medical license away.
The Despains were faced with a choice. Kaylee could risk her life and give birth to a baby who would die quickly, or go out of state and have an abortion.
How could you be so cruel as to pass a law that you know will hurt women and that you know will cause babies to be born in pain?
Why?
Who's going to
Because
die
the
a
media
painful
gives
death?
them a pass.
So how is that humane? How is
That's
that
why they
saving
get away with
anybody?
this and don't
They
care.
decided to travel to New Mexico. Texas law prohibits insurance companies from paying for abortions in most cases, so Cade said he had to convince a relative to give them thousands of dollars.
My job as a husband is to protect and love my wife.
Now that relative can be sued.
If I'm not fighting to keep her here, then I failed.
The doctors in New Mexico recorded the baby's heartbeat. Kaylee sleeps with the giraffe at night and cries, mourning the loss of her baby and another loss too. She and Cade were born and raised in Texas.
And I've never felt more betrayed by a place that I was once so proud to be from.
They desperately want to have another baby, but there's a high likelihood that something will go wrong again.
The last time that I saw my OB, she said, do not get pregnant in Texas right now. She said, this is not safe.
Now Kaylee and Cade have to decide, abide by that advice and leave Texas, leave their families and their jobs, or stay in Texas and risk Kaylee's life once again. We reached out to 10 state legislators in Texas who
10
authored or sponsored
Republicans.
the state's anti-abortion laws. We did not get one response. Not one legislator wrote us back with their thoughts on Kaylee's situation. Not one legislator took responsibility for the very laws that they wrote. Jake?
Not only are they not taking responsibility, the media also will not take responsibility by holding these politicians accountable. They're going to be able to come on CNN and push anything else that they want and not be asked any questions by these people. They have, without a doubt, gone out of their way to ignore the fact that the people taking away abortion rights are all Republicans. And those that are making it easier for those in red states to have abortions when they cross borders are all Democrats. Why didn't they mention either party at all? It's because they want to make it seem like this is not a partisan issue, because it is devastating to Republicans as they are constantly running away from this issue lately. And they spent decades lying to the American people about what they actually wanted to do, and the media ignored it. So to the media admitting that they didn't inform you and that they failed would be problematic. So that's probably another reason why they're covering up for the Republicans' anti-abortion crusade.
So this photo is giving major Nazi, like Hitler dictator vibes to the fullest, and make no mistake about it, it's completely intentional.
Because
what the enemy is doing right now is he's trying to establish his kingdom, and he's trying to take dominion over the United States of America. And that's basically, if you can see in the spirit, what this image is representing. And so many people are saying now that, as of last night, he declared war on conservatives, but they declared war on conservatives on January 6th when they did what they did at the Capitol, and then the DOJ decided that they were going to put together a domestic terrorist unit, and then they started censoring us. Make no mistake about it, conservatives are in a database, and they are at some point going to come for us, because we are the only resistance that there is.
Big Tech is on
the
our
way that
side,
they want
dummy.
to catch us up and slow us down from getting our country back in order and utilizing our constitutional rights in a peaceful manner is by creating civil unrest, which is exactly what they want.
It is.
If they can get America into a position where they can declare martial law, then they can have full authority to lock you away and throw out the key. And that's what they want to do. So I just want to encourage everybody to stay peaceful no matter what these people do.
Stay peaceful. Because I was able to take the presidency away from Republicans. So if you like those videos, please help. The YouTube algorithm is horribly biased against, progressives. And the Republicans have massive amounts of money just to buy it off. So every time you like, every time you put a comment down below, helps us out. So like, subscribe, and if you really want to help the environment, down below is a link to a GoFundMe page where it has a brand new power generation that is 0% carbon emission and one of the cheapest productions of electricity the world has ever had. So go down, help us out.